Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today it's like joining in, calling in on a radio. It's like a long time listener, first time caller. So a long time attendee, first time presenter. So I'm very, very happy to be here and happy to see all of you. So we'll begin by joining palms and taking a bow and reciting the four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Vow. So whenever I am going to give a presentation, whatever I happen to be studying is sort of what just is going through my practice, going through my mind, and Gilbert actually got me on the track of the Saṃdhinirmocana Sutra a while back. It's been a few months now, but this was actually a sutra that I came into contact with a number of years ago when I was getting very interested in the Mahayana sutras. I went online to BDK Tripitaka and just ordered a whole bunch of the things that they had. And one of the things that I picked up was a rather cumbersome translation. At least it was cumbersome for me at that point in my practice and my study journey of the Saṃdhinirmocana Sutra, translated as the scripture on the explication of underlying meaning. And I jumped into this sutra with a study group of mine. And, we would spend maybe 45 to 60 minutes just kind of poking away at it every week for, it was a long time. It was well over a year. And we didn't make it particularly far in the sutra. We kept on going back and rereading things because there was a lot that we didn't understand. So then we kind of put it down and I continued studying with Gilbert, reading other sutras. And just a few months ago, he mentioned it again. And I decided, okay, yeah, I'd like to revisit that and see what it's all about. And I have been absolutely astounded by it. I have expanded beyond just that one translation. I now have three translations and a book of commentary. And it is just, it's absolutely wonderful. So when I was asked to present, this was very naturally the material that I would try to share because I've been realizing a tremendous amount of benefits in my own life and practice. And I sincerely hope that through our investigation today, you'll be able to get some benefits as well. Maybe not the same benefits as I've been realizing, but you'll get something that you can use. So we want to do a little bit of background with regards to this sutra. So it is believed that the earliest form of this sutra showed up as early as the first or second century CE, but its final form kind of became cohesive no earlier than the third. And there began to be some significant commentaries produced by the fourth century CE, like commentaries by very important individuals like Asanga. And this was one of the earliest texts to expound the doctrine of the Yogacara school, or the consciousness only school. And it's been translated as unlocking the mysteries, the explanation of the profound secrets, the sutra, which decisively reveals the intention. And in the grand schema of the Buddhist evolution of thought and practice, it is called the third turning of the wheel. So the first turning of the wheel was when Shakyamuni Buddha set into motion the wheel of Dharma. And it is called the vehicle of the disciples, the Shravakayana. In today's practice, it's known through the Theravada school. And it's one of its chief works that is relied upon is the Abhidharma. And it looks at phenomena as having these very real and irreducible components. So in the Abhidharma, You have materiality, you have consciousness, and you have mental factors. And these are conditioned irreducibles. So these are the phenomenal components that make up all things. In addition to that, you have the unconditioned irreducible, and that is nirvana. And in all of this, they still did propound the doctrine or the belief in no self, but it looked at all of these phenomenal components as being real, though interdependent. In the second turning, this is where the Mahayana came into play through the Prajnaparamita scriptures, championed by the Madhyamaka school, where instead of looking at phenomena as being fundamentally real, though interdependent, the Madhyamaka tradition looked at phenomena as being unreal because of interdependence. And unlike in the first turning of the wheel, they offered no conceptual handholds. So in the first turning of the wheel, Buddhism became very, very famous for its lists. There was a joke that Harry once told to me that it's near and dear to my heart. He said that Christians love Jesus, Buddhists love lists. And in the first turning of the Dharma wheel in the Sutta Pitaka, there is list after list after list, just exhaustively examining and categorizing phenomena and various approaches to the path and positive and negative mental factors. In the second turning of the wheel, the Prajnaparamita tradition left absolutely none of this. They said, sorry, you can't hold on to any of it. Nothing that is a concept can remain. There's even I can't remember the name of the sutra, but in it, I believe it's Subhuti asks Manjushri, so what is it that practitioners can rely on? And Manjushri answers a simple nothing. There's nothing that practitioners can rely on. Manjushri is the representation of this perfection of wisdom, Prajnaparamita. And if you are interacting with Manjushri, you aren't even going to have ground upon which to stand. But because of that, you'll be standing everywhere. But we're looking at the third turning of the wheel, which is also Mahayana. And we start to see the introduction of the Tathagata Garbha and Buddha nature scriptures, as well as this Yogacara Sutra. And this third turning in a very large whale kind of reconciles these first two turnings of the wheel because it introduces incredibly extensive logic, but it introduces it from the understanding or with the recognition that concepts cannot ultimately be relied upon. So this piece, this sutra, this wonderful text, is just fantastic. Looking at these three turnings, they are often presented as one being superior to the next, or one being superseded by the next. So you had the first turning, and it was overcome by the second or the third, or the the Prajnaparamita tradition is superior to the Theravada, and then the Yogacara is superior to the Madhyamaka. But I would advise not to look at it this way, because even though these are sequential turnings, one after the other, it is just one wheel. I often rely on my favorite part of the Lotus Sutra. In the Lotus Sutra, there's a famous example where a father comes home to a burning house and his children are inside. It's on fire, filled with venomous snakes and insects. And so he rushes into the house to try to get his children to leave. But they're having such a great time. They are delighted doing what they're doing, and so they can't be bothered. But the father knows that each of his three children has a very favorite thing. And being a Buddhist example, each of them favors a vehicle. So one prefers a goat cart, the other prefers a deer cart, and the last an ox cart. So all of these three types of vehicles are favored by one or the other children. But the father, he just needs them to get out of this house. So he tells the first, hey, guess what? I have a goat cart waiting for you outside. Just please come and check it out. The second, he says, I have a deer cart for you. Please come outside. Check out what I have for you. It's wonderful. It's your favorite thing. And the last, he says, "Oh, I got that ox cart. I know you love ox carts." If I was to update this in modern terminology, as their children, I got your Xbox outside. I got your Nintendo, or I got your PlayStation. Just please come out and leave this house. In the classic example, when the three children leave the house, what is waiting for them is beyond their expectations. It completely goes beyond what they could have imagined. It is more wonderful. It's described as being like a great white ox cart. And so it's the biggest of them all. And this was the one vehicle. So the Buddha taught whatever was needed to get the kids out of the burning house. And in my modern example, I'll betray some of my background. There's a souped up uh, PC that's got all the glowing lights in it because, in my mind, it's definitely superior to all the consoles. But it's beyond. And so what this sutra is doing is it's trying to make sense of all of these different presentations of the Buddha Dharma, trying to, reconcile the first and the second wheel and just explicitly reveal the Buddha's intent. So it wasn't a trying to show what the heart of the Buddha was all about and why he said the things that he said in the way that he said them. So this is the introduction, kind of setting the ground for looking into this sutra. So when it starts off with a descriptor of the like where it's at, and it is a dwelling in an immeasurable palace, arrayed with the supreme brilliance of the seven precious substances, emanating great rays of light that suffused innumerable universes. So it is a super cool, awesome place, just beyond imagination, beyond our ability to conceive. But this is the ground where the Buddha sits. This is the ground where the Buddha expounds to the assembly. Um, and it is attended by a community of innumerable bodhisattvas. It was alive with unlimited numbers of humans and non-humans. So a vast ocean of beings is surrounding, and the Buddha is trying to talk to them all. The Buddha is trying to explain to everyone, um, please get out of the house, and here's why. So the sutra starts off with one bodhisattva asking another bodhisattva a simple but very profound question. And I apologize ahead of the time for butchering the names. But Bodhisattva Vidhi Vat Pariperchaka questioned the Bodhisattva Gambirar Thas Saṃdhinirmocana. So these translate to logical reasoning is asking, revealing the deep and profound meaning. These names are genuinely important. They will give you an excellent peek into what is trying to be communicated, who is trying to talk to who. And I've gotten a lot from just looking up the very names. So and and I apologize for not doing them justice again, but I remember in the first time I was going through this, we couldn't keep on stumbling over the names again and again. So Bodhisattva V asks Bodhisattva G about the ultimate, whose character is inexpressible and non-dual. So he asks, O son of the conqueror, when it is said all phenomena are non-dual, how is it that all phenomena are non-dual? From the very beginning of the sutra, we're trying to take that chisel and crack through to the heart of things. So, what is this ultimate whose character is inexpressible and non-dual? What does non-dual or non-duality even mean? So, revealing the deep and profound meaning responds, with respect to all phenomena are just two kinds, compounded and uncompounded. So this is speaking directly to that first turning of the Dharma wheel, where you had those irreducible compounded phenomena. You had materiality, you had consciousness, and you had the mental factors. Those would be the compounded. And the uncompounded would be nirvana. Other translations are created and uncreated, conditioned and unconditioned. But all phenomena fit underneath these two. But that is not enough. That's very easy. That's something that logical reasoning probably could have come up with on his own. But the revealing the deep and the profound meaning continues. So the compounded is not the compounded, nor is it the uncompounded. The uncompounded is not uncompounded, nor is it compounded. So already we are stepping outside of our ability to grasp things with our concepts, with our ideas. We can understand that A is A and A is not B, but from the very beginning, we're diving straight into A is not really A, B is not really B. So logical reasoning is very confused by this. Like we may be very confused by this. So he asks further, so why is the compounded neither compounded nor uncompounded? And why is the uncompounded neither uncompounded nor compounded? This doesn't make any sense to me at all. Can you please explain a bit further? So Bodhisattva G responds, uh, compounded is a term designated by the teacher. It's a word. This term, designated by the teacher, is a conventional expression arisen from mental construction. So it's a conventional expression. It's a word. It's something that is conventionally understandable. If I say apple, you can have a conventional understanding about what an apple is. I can hold up this object, and you would have a conventional understanding that this is a bottle. If you could read it, you could read the lettering, you'd know that it was coconut water. That is a conventional understanding. But this conventional understanding has arisen from mental construction. And because a conventional expression arisen from mental construction is a conventional expression of various mental constructions, it is not established. So the words that we have to conventionally rely upon, uh, all phenomena fit into these two categories. Remember, compounded and uncompounded. And anything that can fit into those two, and even those two categories themselves, these are merely conventional expressions. They're conventional expressions that have been created by the mind. And because it is this way, they cannot be established. So whether you're talking about the compounded or the uncompounded, they cannot be established because these are just words that have been created by the mind. And if you look for them past that, if you look for them any deeper than that, you won't be able to find anything that you can lay your hands on. There's nothing substantive there. You will just be constantly be grasping at other conventional expressions, which in turn are made up of other conventional expressions. And if you look into those, they as well are made up of more of the same. And there's nothing solid. There's no end to that particular practice. And so they cannot be established. So it goes on to say, even if something were expressed that is not included within the compounded or uncompounded, it would be just the same as this, just conventional expressions that have been created by the mind. And then it goes on to say something that is very interesting. It says, an expression is also not without thingness. Not without thingness. What is a thing? It is that to which the Aryas, the worthy ones, completely and perfectly awaken without explanation through their exalted wisdom and exalted vision. So even as we're saying that there's nothing that can be found, there's nothing that can be established, this isn't an empty vacuity that we're talking about. There is not nothing, because if that's all that there was, there would be just a headlong plunge into nihilism. There's nothing there, then nothing matters. And that is not at all in alignment with the meaning, with the heart of what the Buddha is trying to communicate. And I actually found it at this particular point very useful to look at one of my other translations, because while this one that I actually prefer for the most part, just because it's incredibly simple and it doesn't hurt that it's got really big print on the pages. I like that. It says, because they have completely and perfectly realized that very reality, which is inexpressible, they designate the name compounded. So the Aryas, because they have realized the truth that is beyond the words and phrases, they can give it a name. But this translation is lacking a little bit. So this is consider this as a good indicator as why it's beneficial to have more than one, because another translation said, it is because they desire to lead others to realize perfect awakening that they provisionally establish such expressions as verbal descriptions. So one of them doesn't have or doesn't communicate as fully the heart the way that the other does. And the first is a Tibetan translation or translation from Tibetan, and the second is one from Chinese. And in other places, in the Tibetan translation, it more robustly communicates the Bodhisattva heart, while the Chinese doesn't. But wherever the places the translation are difficult, that's where you'll see the most divergence. And when you consult multiple versions, multiple translations of the same text, you will be able to come closer and closer to the heart of the meaning. And that's exactly what this sutra is talking about. What we are trying to accomplish. We're trying to cleave through to the heart of the Buddha. We're not trying to get caught up in all of the words and the phrases, the descriptions. We are instead trying to trace it back to its meaning. So the Buddha continue, or the Bodhisattva Ji rather, continues describing how ordinary sentient beings who can't penetrate or haven't penetrated to the ultimate, they are like children who have gone to a magician's show. And the magician is putting on this wonderful show. He's creating all of these illusions, taking sticks, twigs, and rocks and making it appear as though a carriage is rolling across the stage. Maybe he's doing shadow puppetry. And those who are lacking in understanding about the nature of a magician, they are absolutely delighted, thinking that, oh wow, it's magic. A carriage is rolling across the stage, and so they're seeing and feeling and hearing all of these things that simply aren't there. And ordinary sentient beings are like this with regards to the ultimate. We don't have the maturation. We lack the understanding. We lack the direct perception of mind. And so instead of seeing straight through to the ultimate, we are caught up in this fantastical demonstration or display. And we believe that the things that we see are real unto themselves, when in fact, all of these things are just mental fabrications. They are all just created by the mind. So, similarly, when sentient beings who are ordinary beings with childish natures see and hear these compounded and uncompounded things they think, these compounded and uncompounded things which appear exist. They emphatically apprehend and emphatically assert in accordance with how they see and hear. Subsequently, they make the conventional designations. This is true, the other is false. Whereas when those sentient beings who do not have childish natures see and hear these compounded and uncompounded things, think these compounded and uncompounded things that appear do not exist. And I would say that they do not exist as they appear. With regard to them, there arises a perception of what is compounded and uncompounded, and a perception of the attributes of the compounded and the uncompounded. So there certainly is the appearance of phenomena. There is the appearance of the uncompounded and the compounded phenomena, but these are mere perceptions. And those who see deeply recognize this. So this is the first chapter of the Saṃdhinirmocana Sūtra. And I see Maddie has raised her hand. Do you have a question?
Yes, I was wondering if you could just give us an example of what compounded and uncompounded phenomenon are.
So compounded phenomena is anything that has been created. So, this is a compounded phenomena. I, a human being, am a compounded phenomena. Anything that's made up of other things is a compounded phenomena. Whereas the uncompounded or the uncreated or the unconditioned is classically just described as nirvana. But the point that this first chapter is trying to get us to see is that this division is artificial. And these are just words and conventions. So whatever it is that you can think of, even if you could think of something outside of these categories, it's just this way. And that's all that it is. There's nothing real. There's nothing substantive that we'll ever be able to put our fingers on. There's merely perceptions of things, perceptions of substantiality, and then the perception of substantiality. But thank you for eliciting that clarification. So this sutra is split up into a number of different chapters. And in every chapter, there's a new person who either is asking questions or who is making observations. And this second chapter features the Bodhisattva Dharma, whose name means elevated through Dharma. And the Bodhisattva Dharma has uh, he has a little story to tell. So he talks about, or she, well, I don't know, there's not a gender assigned. This bodhisattva says, "Hey, I've come from a place very, very far away. I come from the world system Kirti Mat, Buddha land of the Tathagata Visalakirti. And while I was there, I saw a lot of people talking about the ultimate, trying to consider the ultimate character of phenomena. And when I say a lot, I mean 7,700,000 teachers. And they were all from outsider systems. So they were not investigating via Buddhism. They were investigating through other philosophies, other approaches. So and he tells this story. They had gathered at a certain place to begin considering the ultimate character of phenomena, which we have just covered as being non-dual and beyond language. Although they contemplated, weighed, closely examined, and sought the ultimate character of phenomena, they had not realized it. They had divergent opinions, doubts, and misconceptions. They debated and quarreled. They insulted each other with harsh words. They were abusive, deceitful, and overbearing. They attacked one another. Having seen them so divided, Bhagavan, I thought, alas, Tathagatas arise in the world, and through their arising, the realization and actualization of the ultimate, whose character completely transcends all argumentation. It is indeed marvelous and astonishing. So any type of phenomena, anything at all that can be talked about or argued about lies within this realm of argumentation. And if you can truly talk about it, it isn't it. My mind goes to the opening line of the Tao Te Ching. The Tao that can be spoken of is not the real Tao. The mind that we can speak about, the mind that we can invest with attributes, that's not the real mind. And Chan teachers throughout the ages, they have implemented the training tool when attachment to the idea of mind occurs. They hit you with a no mind. Whatever it is that you're trying to grab a hold of, well, if you can argue about it, make a case for it, that's not it. So the ultimate is realized individually by the Aryas, the worldly, or the worthy ones, while objects collectively known by ordinary beings belong to the realm of argumentation. So that which is realized deeply is beyond argument. The ultimate belongs to the signless realm, while argumentation belongs to the signs, even so far as saying this is right and that is wrong. This is good and that is bad. All of this belongs to the realm of signs. The ultimate is inexpressible, while argumentation belongs to the realm of expression. The ultimate is devoid of convention, while argumentation belongs to the realm of convention. The ultimate is completely devoid of all dispute, while argumentation belongs to the realm of controversy. In our lives as practitioners, we are constantly in the realm of argumentation. Just try driving down the road 10 miles an hour below the speed limit, and people are going to argue with you with their horns that you shouldn't be doing that. Every day, we encounter situations within this realm of argumentation. But that doesn't mean that we have to be entrapped or ensnared, completely invested in this realm. Mind does not dwell exclusively in this realm. Mind is, as it said earlier, the ultimate is non-dual. So it cannot be confined between one or the other. So even in the midst of this realm of argumentation or controversy, the practice allows that connection or the intimacy with that which is beyond controversy or dispute. But beings who have been engaged in passionate desire for a long time, who have been utterly tormented by the pangs of desire, are unable to imagine, infer, or appreciate the happiness of inner solitude, free from all the signs of form, sound, smell, taste, or touch. Because the mind of sentient beings has become so entangled in this delight with form, with phenomena, it cannot imagine what being free of that is like. Because beings have been engaged in discursiveness for a long time, manifestly delighting in discursiveness, they are unable to imagine, infer, or appreciate the inner non-discursive joy of the Aryas, what being free of the obsessive bondage of language brings. We'll move to the next chapter where the Bodhisattva Suvi Sudamadi, um, purified intelligence. He remarks that the ultimate profound and subtle, having a character that it completely transcends sameness and difference, is difficult to realize. And there is a tremendous amount in this chapter where the Buddha talks about why this is so. The Buddha commends Bodhisattva S about making this observation, um, saying that you cannot completely separate the compounded and the ultimate. You can't completely separate the compounded and the uncompounded, that they are not the same and they are not different. And this is important because since the characters of the compounded both differ and do not differ, yogis or practitioners search for an ultimate that is beyond all compounded things as they are seen, heard, differentiated, and known. So our perceptions of the world, our perceptions of phenomena, that's not it. And so the practitioner looks beyond that. So the ultimate is distinguished by being the selflessness of compounded things. So they can't be completely separated. They are not the same, but they cannot be completely separated. And I'm jumping around a little bit here because there's there's so much in this sutra, and I want to give you some of the payoff because there are just a couple of these chapters that just hit so hard, but it is incredibly useful to look at the foundations because we're talking about the third turning of the wheel here. So there is the building up of these logical argumentations that are constructed on the understanding that logic cannot be relied upon. So now we're in chapter 4, where Subhuti, who is a well-known character to us, shows up in a lot of the Prajnaparamita sutras. He is known for his mastery, being the most excelled in emptiness, and his name means good existence. So he actually describes a community of monks. And these monks have all gathered in a great assembly, and they too are trying to talk about their understandings. So these venerable persons communicate their understandings by describing their manifest realization of the various forms of phenomena. So he goes through all of these different lists. So list after list after list. The four foundations of mindfulness, the four correct abandonings, the four bases of magical powers, the five forces. Now, all of these lists, these practitioners have come forth and they're saying, this is how I understand reality. This is what I have realized. And Subhuti, who has been watching this entire exchange, realizes or recognizes that they do not seek the ultimate, whose character is of one taste. Therefore, these venerable persons have conceit. They can only communicate their understanding under the influence of conceit. So, what is this conceit that they are being influenced by? This is the conceit that these various lists, these treasured lists of the Buddhist canon, are real unto themselves. They are the conceit that I know these things. So this is conceit upon conceit. And when I read this particular piece about conceit, it reminded me of a passage from the Vimalakirti Sutra, where the Vimalakirti has shown up and is criticizing or correcting Mahamaggalayaya, who has gathered an assembly of lay people, and he's teaching them about the Dharma. So Vimalakirti shows up and says, "Man, all of this stuff that you've been teaching is you're teaching as though there are real things here. There are real living beings, and that there are these real phenomena. There's these really consciousness. There's really mental factors." And he concludes with, "How could there be a teaching in regard to such a Dharma in which all of these things are mere fabrications, a Dharma that is free from all of these things? Even the expression to teach the Dharma is presumptuous, and those who listen to it listen to presumption. Where there are no presumptuous words, there is no teacher of the Dharma, no one to listen, and no one to understand. It is as if an illusory person were to teach the Dharma to illusory people." So all of these practitioners, all of these monastics have gathered together to talk about their understanding with regards to phenomena. And it is presumption. It is conceit. None of this actually pertains to the ultimate because they're looking at all of these things that are cut up and differentiated, which in the first chapter we already explored as the ultimate being inexpressible and non-dual. So not only are they exploring dualities, they're exploring trialities and quadralities, quintralities, like all of these separations. But the ultimate is of one taste. And so the Buddha is very happy about Subhuti having put forth this understanding. And there's an interesting passage here. So, where the Buddha says, "Subhuti, monks who practice yoga, who practice Buddha Dharma, having completely realized the suchness of one aggregate, the selflessness of phenomena that is the ultimate, do not have to seek further for suchness, for the ultimate, for the selflessness in each of the other aggregates and in all of the other things. So if you can penetrate one piece of phenomena, that's the ultimate. And that ultimate is going to be the same regardless of the phenomena. It will always be there. It will always be of one taste." So next comes the fifth chapter, which to me is a very, very exciting chapter. In this chapter is introduced some of the central concepts never before seen in all of Buddha Dharma. And in this chapter, the bodhisattva who's talking with the Buddha is Visalamadi, or extensive intelligence. And he asks the Buddha, how are bodhisattvas wise with respect to the secrets of mind, thought, and consciousness? Um, Mind, chitta, thought. Got it written down somewhere.
Manas.
Manas, thank you. Manas and consciousness, Vijnana. So these are the three subjects that are of interest in being explored. So Visalamadi, whatever type of sentient being there may be in this cyclic existence, with its six kinds of beings, all the different realms, hell dwellers, hungry ghost, um, animal, human, Ashura, demigod, and the gods. Those sentient beings manifest a body and arise within the states of birth. Initially, in dependence upon two types of appropriation: the appropriation of the physical sense powers associated with a support, so the physical senses with a support, the support being a body. So they arise because of the appropriation of a body and the appropriation of predispositions, which proliferate conventional designations with respect to signs, names, and concepts. This is the predispositions or our habitual tendencies that are attenuated to language, to creating attachments, to working with signs, names, and concepts. So the mind, which has all seeds, ripens. It develops, increases, and expands in its operations. So this is for the first time where the alaya vijnana has been introduced. The alaya vijnana translated as the storehouse consciousness. So we have the appropriating consciousness, which is the adana consciousness, which links from one life to the next. And then the alaya, which accumulates and holds all of these seeds, all of these habitual tendencies. And these two accumulations are how life appears. And then it goes on to say that the sixfold collection of consciousness arises depending upon and abiding in that appropriating consciousness. So you can think about the alaya vijnana as being this pool, and all of these other forms of consciousness are like splashes that arise from that pool. So an I consciousness arises depending on an I in a form, in association with consciousness. Pretty standard Buddha Dharma right there. Functioning together with that I consciousness, a conceptual mental consciousness arises at the same time, having the same objective reference. Now, this is very interesting, and this is something that I have been applying in my daily practice. So you have this sense experience, and right now we're all having a sense experience. We've got stuff coming through our eyes. You've got my voice coming in through your ears. You're probably aware of your body in a whole lot of different ways. The sense consciousnesses are all arising simultaneously, and instantaneously in response to that, mental consciousness is being generated. And that mental consciousness it's like taking a snapshot of the video that's happening, the video of like all of these sense consciousnesses just flowing through and crystallizing it. And that is making all of these mental objects. It's generating all of the mental separations. This is the route through which all of our conceptualization can take hold. It is this like flash of a mental creation, a mental construction that occurs almost simultaneously with our sense consciousnesses. Um, and this is something that we can use, we can practice with. It can be um, very impactful. So, what I have been trying to accomplish with this particular little tidbit here is just to cut through all of that ideation, simply returning to the immediacy of the present moment. Um, and even before the split of all of these other consciousnesses, um, always seeking to return the mind, just constantly settling back into the deeper levels of consciousness. Um, yeah, it's been a very fruitful practice, but I can't stop here. There's a little bit more that I want to get through. One of the foundational pieces of the Yogacara tradition is the three characteristics of phenomena, or the three natures. And this is another just incredibly useful tool that I have found to apply to all kinds of situations. So they are the imputational character, the other dependent character, and the thoroughly established character. In other translations, I've seen nature instead of character. So the imputational nature, the other dependent nature, and the thoroughly established nature. So what is the imputational nature? It is that which is imputed as name or symbol in terms of the own being or attributes of phenomena, in order to subsequently designate any convention whatsoever. So any thought about a characteristic or attribute. So all phenomena we impute characteristics and attributes on, such as separation, such as existence or non-existence, such as high or low, near or far. These are merely the imputational character or the imputational nature of things. So, what is the other dependent character, the other dependent nature? It is simply the dependent origination of phenomena. It is like this. Because this exists, that arises. Because this is produced, that is produced. We have arrived at pratitya samutpada, causes and conditions never fail. This is the other dependent character of phenomena. Whereas the thoroughly established character is the suchness of phenomena, the true and complete selflessness, the indivisibility of phenomena. And with the brief time that I have remaining to me, I wanted to talk just a little bit about the practice that begins to be introduced in this wonderful sutra. It uses these three natures, the imputational, the other dependent, and the absolute, or the thoroughly established. And it says, okay, so how do we begin to break through this obfuscating web of concepts that the mind has become trapped in? Like, I'm always relating to things as myself and other, inside and outside, good and bad. How can I break through? How can mind begin to see the ultimate? And the Saṃdhinirmocana Sutra is very clear. It says you have to focus on the other dependent nature. This is the very first step. You have to begin to recognize what appears to be real and concrete, real and separate, does not depend on itself. There is no own nature there. Everything depends on other things. And when you begin to look at things this way. Have that constant little voice in your head every time that there's encountering with phenomena. Yeah, it appears to be this way. It appears that I'm looking at a computer screen populated with all of these individuals, but that appearance is created by the mind. It's just created by the mind. Whatever it is, it's created by the mind. This becomes the initial samatha practice. And in samatha, you have one thing that you hold on to. And through that, there's the development of tranquility. But the way that the Saṃdhinirmocana Sutra talks about this samatha practice, it's not just choosing one object. It's constantly always looking into the other dependent nature of things, that it's just created by the mind. And when that understanding, when that knowing begins to penetrate, then the imputational character can truly begin to be seen as it is. If we just look at whatever it is that arises as being, oh, that's nothing at all, our practice is going to wander into very dangerous territory. Um, in the next chapter, the Buddha talks about why he presented things in the order that he presented them. He presented the Shravakayana, the with all of these instructions as to how to generate merit and virtue, how to generate momentum in one's practice. Because in the absence of those meritorious deeds, there's always going to be clinging. There will not have the conditions for a deeper penetration and understanding simply will not arise. And so this cleaving to the other dependent nature is the necessary first step. When you see that certain courses of action lead to certain results, it's almost automatic, almost a necessity to be in a more virtuous way. It's natural. In the absence of this kind of understanding, it's very easy to be callous. It's easy to say that, well, if everything's just created by the mind, if all the values are just arbitrarily assigned, well, then I can do whatever I want. But it simply isn't this way. And to do in accordance with that last line of thought would be entirely against the meaning of the Buddha's teachings, the meaning of the Buddha's appearance here in this realm. All right, well, I've gotten through such a small portion of what I had wanted or hoped to share today. You know, I've been to so many of these talks where Gilbert gets to the end and it's like, oh wow, that was just such a short time. And this was such a short time. This was such an inadequate amount of time to try to share just how wonderful the sutra is. If nothing else, hopefully you might get a little interested by my zeal in it, interested enough to crack it open and look in it, because you need to. You absolutely have to. As good Buddhists, we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha all the time. We venerate the teachings. People will circumambulate sutras, um, but you have to crack them open. You have to crack them open and look into them. You have to actually pick them up. You have to think about them. The Vipassana element that the Saṃdhinirmocana Sutra has given to me in terms of applied practice is simply the reflection on the various teachings. So remembering with the samatha element that everything is created by the mind, look into the teachings, reflect. contemplate, allow thoughts to show up about them, but just don't get overly excited. Don't get encapsulated in logical trains of thought. Always return that to everything is created by the mind. So I thank you very much for listening to this trashy talk of mine. Um, any benefit that comes about as a result of what I have been able to share today uh, is truly only due to the teachers and the lineages of my teachers. And any mistakes or faults in today's presentations, those belong to me. So thank you so much. Amitofo. I'll be happy to receive any comments or questions. I see we got Harry.
Yeah, hi Ian. That was great. I share your enthusiasm. Wonderful sutra. But I've been practicing with the Yogacara, and there's the five dharmas, which is a meditation practice, which aligns with those the three natures. It's another way of looking at it. It's very helpful because the first thing is appearance and name. Those arise in parakalpita, the one that you mentioned of the world of imagination,
Hmm.
and they arise simultaneously. It's kind of mind-boggling, almost instantaneously. As soon as something appears in the mind, the mind names it,
Hmm.
and then the next one is discrimination, right? That's the paratantra, the one where it's dependent, because based on this false information, you start creating your world out of it's one illusion after another, and then the last one, the paranishpana, which is the ultimate, is the correct knowledge and then suchness. And eventually you I think everything turns in that middle section, just like you said. But it's another way of kind of looking at these things, because the Yogacara, I'm sorry, the I'm having a senior moment. The Lankavichara, is says that everything is a projection of the mind, you
Hmm.
know, and I think that's really very helpful. One other thing, I mean, I have, this, I thought it was very great, and so you've animated me too. This is very subtle. There's a subtle problem I find with translating Dharma as phenomena. And because the Lankavatara defines that's what I was talking about originally, not the Yogacara Sutra, but the
Hmm. Hmm.
Lankavatara, defines a Dharma as anything that you can imagine. And then, of course, there are also non-dharmas. Dharmas are ones that arise from causes and conditions, but non-dharmas are ones that you sort of imagine. And non-dharmas and dharmas are the same thing. Whether it's that's one thing that makes clear. But the reason why I say there's a slight issue is because the way we use phenomena in English is that when a phenomenon is already a naming of something, the phenomenon of a meme on the internet or this or that. It's already named. Where Dharma is a little more subtle than that, I think. So there's another really cool sutra called the Empty Bowl Sutra. I don't know. This is associated. It's Prajnaparamita, and this has Manjushri, I guess, is one of the interlocutors, and he's talking about dharmas, and he says dharmas are ungraspable, but you can't get rid of them. So just that. So right there, it's like sort of encapsulating what you've been talking about. That's kind of the irony of the whole thing. So it's just wonderful. And then And then I have to tell you, but the one taste, by the way, is chocolate mint chip, just so you're clear on that. You were just wanted to see if you're paying attention. Anyway, thank you. It was
Well,
really
I've been getting it wrong this whole time then. I thought that it was coconut water.
okay. Anyway, thank you. It was really a wonderful talk. So I really appreciate it.
Well, you talked about that transformation. Another one of the concepts that comes later on is the Asraya Parvarti, the transformation of the basis. And so, yeah, we're not getting rid of dharmas. We're not getting rid of phenomena. I mean, dharma, I believe part of the root of it is truth. And so whether it's little d or it's big D, it's truth. And so you're not getting rid of anything. There's simply a redefining of the relationship that exists, a redefinition of the sense of duality, and just completely cleaving through little d dharma, big D dharma, all created by the mind. It's just created by the mind, and you won't ever be able to find anything more than that. And so long as that is present, it doesn't matter what the particular words are that are being used to describe. It's all about the meaning. It's only about the heart. And so long as that is clear, um, everything else is just gravy.
Yeah, that's also Sherfu says that the big D Dharma is made out of little D Dharmas, right? He says that in the Infinite Mirror book. I mean, so
Hmm.
that you're once again everything uh, is a conceit. You know, everything. That's why it's illusory. It's just created by the mind, and we don't see it.
Just mind, uh, just mind. Like there's that Chan teacher, whose name that I can't remember. He talked about what is the primary function of mind? What is the primary meaning of mind? It's just mind. And that's when I think about the meaning of the practice, I think about that phrase. What is the primary meaning? It's just mind. And when that is clear, when there is the opportunity for virtuous behavior, it's natural to produce that. And when there's the opportunity for relinquishment, it's natural. Mind just functions naturally, so long as it's clear. Hey, Matt.
Amitofo Sangha. Hello, big brother Ian.
Amitofo.
How we doing? I jumped in a little late. My apologies, but I was meant to be here for sure. My direct correlation with tonight's lecture, um, man, it's been just really synchronizing a lot with a lot of what's going on in my life currently. The alignment of how things are coming to fruition. And it's non-conceptual wakefulness.
Hmm.
So, I mean, with that description of Yogacara school, I figure that that could be like a good starting point to investigate with, um, at least for me, because um, just recently we've been at a 2 day retreat in DDM Chicago, um, and the basis of that is equanimity. At least that's one of the main foundations of the lecture that was had this past weekend. And again, non-conceptual wakefulness is just something that you can really correlate a lot with the main basis of a lot of Buddha Dharma. So I don't know. I feel like that's a good a strong indication that is that something that I would imagine arises with this sutra.
While it doesn't mention it specifically, the text that uses that particular phraseology, the Dharma, Dharmata, Vibhanga Shastra, distinguishing phenomena from their intrinsic nature, was kind of penned as the cliff notes of a Sangha's meeting with Maitreya up in Tusita heaven. And he used that phrase a lot. So non-conceptual wakefulness, when applied to what we've gone over today, I mean, it's the ultimate. And whatever arises is created by the mind. And so that non-conceptual wakefulness can clearly apprehend even concepts and just not be confounded or pulled by it. Whatever it is that appears, it's just mind. That's it. And what is it that is seeing? Non-conceptual wakefulness. As soon as there is the attempt to point a finger towards this is seeing or that is seeing, this is being seen, then you know that it's just created by the mind. And you can immediately cut the legs out from underneath that process simply by seeing it clearly as it is, by not bringing any more conceptualization. As soon as you notice a concept, what is it that notices that concept? There's that saying that to know the arising mind is the non-arising mind. And that's essentially what you're accomplishing. And non-conceptual wakefulness is this non-arising mind. As soon as the knowing occurs, it's accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
And all that it needs to do is just nothing. Just sit.
Yeah.
Awareness. Awareness is there.
Ah, it's beautiful. Amitofo.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, sir.
Shloka.
Ian, thank you for a wonderful lecture. I just had a small clarification question because I still have to really get into the studying the nature of phenomenon and such, but I think I'm slightly more familiar with other dependent nature and the ultimate. But I wanted to ask if you could clarify what the imputable character is.
So the imputational character, or sometimes it's referred to as the conceptual nature. So it's whatever is imagined. It is like the most coarse imagining with regards to our experience of phenomena. So the most coarse imagining is the name that's given and the thoughts about its character, its essence, and its attributes. So the thought that is a thing. That is a separate thing. That is a statue that is made of jade that came from this place. All of those are the imputational characters, or it's whatever is thrust upon the this it's whatever's thrust upon mind that tries to cut it up into little bits and pieces that makes it easy to handle. Anything that you can handle is the imputational character of things. As soon as you move into the other dependent nature, you've immediately been thrust into the realm of mystery, just incredible, great, profound mystery. Even great masters are only capable of looking one life back or a few lives back to see like how things are the way that they are right now. But the dependent nature is truly a profound mystery. It is the interconnectedness of things. But as soon as we isolate one appearance and say this is a thing, this is separate from that, we have entered the realm of the conceptual or the imputational.
Got it. Yeah, that was super helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Ian, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Gilbert.
Oh, sorry, Xanthel, you go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to express my appreciation. Ian, thank you so very much. I caught that enthusiasm. Thank you very much.
The more that I study, the more that I feel a fire that's building, and it's a very clean burning fire, and it's not a fire that that drives in a reckless manner. It is just like a very a cool fire isn't, I suppose, would be as good of a descriptor as I could have for it, because this fire, it it is burning out that which um, is obstructing more full engagement, more beneficial engagement, more compassionate activities. And so it's not a fire that boils the blood. It's a fire that just that gives energy, but an energy that is very serene. And yeah, I definitely I can be very demonstrative with regards to my love of the Dharma and the practice. Um, but inside, it's very calm. But thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't know how to use the hand, so I'm just using the voice. Um, Very good lecture. You found out how difficult it is to explain things that when you read it you can understand it, but try to express it. Express the Dharma is very hard, but you did a good job of it. I wanted to tie in a bit of what Matt said and what you were talking about, although they're coming from two different schools. This idea of non-conceptual wakefulness, it ties in this way. When we look at the big Dharma, the teachings, and the little Dharma, the phenomena, we also have to know that what's included in that is any kind of mental constructs or consciousness, anything arising. Those imaginings also belong to mind, not just simply to consciousness. So sometimes we get caught up thinking that little Dharma is just visible phenomena, but it's anything that arises in mind, as you'd mentioned. And I think that's important to emphasize. And what Matt was getting to with his non conceptual wakefulness is the actual application of this Dharma, which is that uh, it's non-conceptual, but it is that the mind is directing mind to this non-conceptual wakefulness, rather than the mind directing it to confusions and imaginings. It's directing the mind to a clarity that's there, and that's very important. Going back to my last lecture on the Shurangama Sutra and Avalokitesvara, Kuan Yin's hearing had nothing to do with the realms of hearing per se, but using that as a vehicle to create this omniscience to hear all suffering, not necessarily coming through the ear organ or through the ear realm, but simply as a utilization of the omnisciousness of mind itself. And here it's the same thing. It's pointing to this mind you could call mind king, but that little d, that which wants to say it's doing stuff, is that projection as well. And so when we see that, then we understand that's why the big D belongs to the little d too, because it's all phenomenal. So as we look at the three jewels, only the one is real. Not even the name is real, but the one, Buddha mind, is real without saying Buddha mind. And that's where there is this a leap of faith to be able to jump from that platform, so that one just jumps and you don't have to worry. It's a very soft landing into mind. So I just wanted to kind of thank you for for doing this. It's actually kind of reminded me what I've been teaching all week, so the nut didn't fall too far from the tree, you know. And so I really appreciate that. Some of that I was listening to sounded like I was talking, um, but but that's good. You know, you're really listening and weaving together all these different sutras, and so you know, your bodhicitta is evident. So thank you for covering for me.
嗯，谢谢师傅. Yeah, it was like I feel like there's a bottleneck that like I've got so much that I want to share. There's so much just wonderful, wonderful Dharma that is it can't get out. There's just pressure.
It it is in this way, and what you do is just get out what comes up to the top, and trust that that's in accordance with causes and conditions. You do that. That's why it's so difficult to try to write notes and adhere to them. Normally, I write my notes, and then I get maybe a few lines down, and then it's all automatic pilot, and whatever needs to come to the surface comes. And I mean, it that way you don't have to read what you're saying; it's already in your mind. But yeah, it should be that way. If you only have an hour's worth of talk in you, then there's not much worth listening to you. But if you have 5, 10 hours worth of talk, then now you're truly someone to listen to. And by the way, I am back now, so I'll be coming back next week to give a lecture, and in spite of all the things that were happening to me along the way, I'm feeling better.
I'm very, very glad to hear that.
It's good to see so many people supporting you.
It's a tremendous honor to present to a group like this. I was telling Senta before we got started that I presented to a lot of different kinds of groups. I've presented to beginners in a number of different venues. I've presented to non-Buddhists even many, many times. But this was the first time that I was put before a group that had substantive Dharma.
There is a difference.
There is a difference.
He's complimenting the audience and saying the audience is well learned, and that's good. And so you want to bring your best game.
Right. Well, if we don't have any more questions or comments, then I think that we'll call it a day. So thank you all so much for coming and participating today. May the benefits of this exchange be experienced by all beings in all times. Amitofo.